I've covered this league for years. I've watched young quarterbacks get tested, protected, and sometimes quietly sacrificed. What you're about to hear almost never went public. In the days leading up to Buffalo, pressure closed in around Shedeur, and the decisions made in that window still haven't been fully explained. The week started like any other on paper. Film sessions, injury reports, travel logistics. But inside the building, the mood shifted early. Coaches spoke in shorter sentences. Meetings ran longer than scheduled. Phones buzzed after hours. And by midweek, it was clear this wasn't just about a game planned for Buffalo, it was about control. Shedeur Sanders had become the focal point of everything. Not just the offense, not just the headlines, the expectations, the doubts, the politics. From the practice field to the film room, every rep was dissected, every throw replayed, every expression read for meaning. And while publicly the message stayed calm business as usual, privately, something else was happening. Sources described closed-door conversations that didn't include everyone they usually would. Decisions discussed without names attached. Subtle shifts in language that signaled hesitation, not confidence. A young quarterback preparing for one of the most scrutinized games of his career, while people around him weighed risks that had nothing to do with reads or protection schemes. Buffalo wasn't just another opponent. It was a measuring stick. For the staff, for the organization, and for Shedeur himself. And as the countdown to kickoff continued, the pressure didn't come from the crowd or the media, it came from inside. From expectations that were never stated out loud. From silence where guidance should have been. From the quiet understanding that one game could redefine trajectories. This isn't about what happened on the field. Not yet. This is about the days before. The atmosphere, the power dynamics, and the uncomfortable truth that in the NFL, preparation isn't always about winning, it's about managing fallout. And by the time the team boarded that plane to Buffalo, the outcome felt heavier than a scoreboard could ever explain. Asterisk, the first signs didn't show up on the injury report. They didn't leak through social media. They showed up in behavior. Early in the week, practice ran tighter than usual. Fewer laughs, more repetition. Coaches hovered longer between reps, clipboards tucked in, eyes fixed on details that normally wouldn't draw that kind of attention. For Shedeur, every snap felt measured. Not coached through measured. As if someone, somewhere, was already taking notes for a decision that hadn't been announced. This wasn't unfamiliar territory for him. Pressure had followed his name long before this season. But this week felt different. Not louder, quieter, and in the NFL, silence is often more dangerous than criticism. Inside the building, roles subtly shifted. Meetings that Shedeur typically sat through from start to finish suddenly ended early. A coordinator excused himself more than once to take calls in the hallway. Position coaches spoke carefully, choosing neutral language, avoiding commitment. No one said anything directly, but no one reassured him either. That absence mattered. By Tuesday night, the film sessions had taken on a different tone. Buffalo's defense was broken down in meticulous detail, but the conversation kept circling back to risk, turnovers, tempo, game flow. Not in an aggressive way, more like contingency planning. As if the staff wasn't just preparing Shedeur to play, but preparing themselves for what might happen to him if things went wrong. Power dynamics became clearer as the week progressed. Decisions weren't being debated openly. They were being finalized elsewhere and delivered downward. Assistants took notes instead of offering opinions. Veterans noticed it too. One offensive lineman later described it as playing inside a room where the air felt thinner every day. And then there were the questions that never got answered. Would the offense stay aggressive? Would adjustments be made quickly if Buffalo disguised coverage? What was the threshold for mistakes, for pressure, for patience? These are questions quarterbacks usually get clarity on. This week, Shedeur didn't. What he did get were mixed signals. Public confidence from the podium. Private hesitation behind closed doors. By Thursday, whispers started circulating, not among fans, but internally. About protecting the future. About optics. About narratives that could spiral out of control. None of it framed as blame. All of it framed as caution. And yet, caution has consequences. Especially for a quarterback who thrives on trust and rhythm. The uncomfortable reality was this. Shedeur was preparing for Buffalo while others were preparing for fallout. And when those two preparations don't align, someone always pays the price. By the time the final practice wrapped, nothing explosive had happened. No confrontation. No announcement. Just a lingering sense that something was being withheld. That the full truth about expectations and limits hadn't been shared. And that raised a question no one wanted to ask out loud. When pressure builds this quietly around a quarterback, who is it really meant to protect? By the time the team reached the final stretch before travel, the silence had hardened into something deliberate. Inside the building, information began moving unevenly. Some people knew more than others. Some conversations happened only in pairs, never in groups. A few staffers stopped putting certain thoughts in writing altogether. When that happens in the NFL, it's usually because everyone understands the same unspoken rule. If it's not documented, it can't be traced. Shedeur felt it in the small things first. A shortened walkthrough. A last-minute tweak to the script that wasn't fully explained. A coach who usually corrected mistakes immediately, now letting reps pass without comment. Not approval. Not trust. Just restraint. Sources describe a series of internal discussions that week that had little to do with Buffalo's blitz packages and everything to do with exposure. Exposure to criticism. Exposure to narratives. Exposure to a league that watches young quarterbacks. Not just to evaluate them, but to define them. And here's where the pressure sharpened. There were voices inside the organization, arguing two different philosophies. One side believed in continuity, ride with your quarterback, absorb the risk, show conviction. The other believed in insulation, limit variables, manage perception, reduce damage if the game turned. Neither side wanted to be wrong, and neither side wanted responsibility if things went sideways. That tension didn't reach the podium. Publicly, the messaging stayed polished, calm, confident, but behind the scenes, decisions were being delayed, re-evaluated, and quietly rerouted. One insider described it as everyone waiting for someone else to say it first. As the week went on, the leaks began not to the media, but within the building. Offhand remarks, cautious hypotheticals. If this happens, we'll adjust. If that happens, we'll reassess. No one finished the sentences. They didn't have to. Veteran players noticed the disconnect immediately. Preparation felt fragmented. The offense practiced scenarios without clarity on how long the leash was. The defense sensed hesitation across the ball. And when teammates start sensing uncertainty around the quarterback position, it spreads fast. By Friday, the silence had turned strategic. There were fewer one-on-one check-ins, fewer direct conversations. The kind of distance that protects decision makers, but isolates the person under the most pressure. Shedeur wasn't benched. He wasn't reprimanded. He wasn't warned. He was simply left to prepare in an environment where the margin for error felt undefined. And that's the most dangerous kind of pressure there is, because when expectations aren't stated, they can't be met. When thresholds aren't shared, every mistake feels fatal. And when support goes quiet, confidence doesn't collapse loudly, it erodes. As the team boarded for Buffalo, the public story remained clean. No controversy, no drama, just football. But inside, the divide was set. Decisions had been shaped by fear of consequences rather than belief in process. And the stage was now prepared for a moment that would force everything into the open, whether anyone was ready or not. whether anyone was ready or the truth didn't arrive with a headline. It surfaced slowly, in fragments, after Buffalo. From the outside, the game was analyzed the way NFL games always are. Play calls, reads, protection, results. But inside the organization, the post-game conversation sounded very different. They weren't asking what went wrong on the field. They were asking whether the pressure itself had altered the outcome before the first snap was ever taken. Multiple insiders later described the same realization. The week leading up to Buffalo had created a situation where Shedeur was playing under two different expectations at once. Publicly, he was the quarterback. Privately, he was a variable being managed. The internal review didn't uncover one dramatic decision. There was no single meeting where everything shifted. Instead, it revealed a pattern of small choices made to protect the organization that slowly transferred all risk onto the player. The shortened leash that was never defined. The conservative adjustments that weren't fully communicated. The silence that replaced trust that pressure mattered. Quarterbacks don't just execute plays. They operate on confidence, rhythm, and clarity. And when clarity is removed, even elite preparation starts to fracture. Coaches later admitted off the record that the environment had become reactive before kickoff. Not reactive to Buffalo, but reactive to fear. Fear of narrative collapse. Fear of long-term consequences. Fear of being tied too closely to a single outcome. The consequences were real. Internally. Roles shifted after the game. Certain voices gained influence. Others lost it. The staff didn't announce changes, but responsibilities quietly moved. Decisions became more centralized. Risk tolerance narrowed. And Shedeur's name, whether fair or not, became attached to a week where leadership hesitated. That's how reputations begin to form in this league. Not through one bad game, but through moments where support wavers just enough to create doubt. And once doubt enters the system, it doesn't stay isolated. It affects play calling, locker room belief, future evaluations, careers. What makes this uncomfortable isn't that pressure existed. Pressure is constant in the NFL. What makes it unsettling is how it was handled. Instead of clarity, there was silence. Instead of shared responsibility, there was insulation. Instead of conviction, there was caution disguised as strategy. And that raises a larger question. How many young quarterbacks are evaluated not just on performance, but on how well they survive internal indecision? How often does the league talk about development while quietly operating on self-preservation? Shedeur didn't lose anything in Buffalo that week, but he was placed in a position where the outcome mattered more than the process. And that distinction follows players far longer than box scores ever will. This story isn't about blame. It's about power. About how pressure moves inside NFL buildings. About how silence can be a decision. And about how easily responsibility can be shifted without ever being acknowledged. So the next time you watch a quarterback take the field under full confidence messaging, ask yourself what's really happening behind the scenes. Ask who's protected. Ask who absorbs the risk. And ask how many careers are shaped long before Sunday ever arrives. Because in this league, the most important plays are often the ones no one sees. If pressure can be managed instead of shared, who does the NFL really protect? And how many young quarterbacks are judged inside systems that never fully commit to them? Say what you see. Challenge the silence. This conversation doesn't end at the scoreboard.